since the dawn of human time. It's never been the good guys have the bad guys completely outnumbered and it's an easy fight for the good guys. It just doesn't work that way. It seems to be that evil always has the advantage, but somehow good wins in the end.
Empire.
In that way. And when you know you're on the side of truth, you have to understand that's how it's always been. You can't be a king without having people try to take your empire. It's happened to you, it's happened to me, it's happening to Trump. And every single point in human history, if you were a king, and you had lands, and you had an empire, there were people outside of your empire prodding the defenders and trying to find a way to attack you and chop your head off. If you're going to tell the truth and be a king with an empire, they're going to come for you. You either have to shut up and work in Starbucks to take your injections, or you can wake up and be a man and understand that war is certain, battle is certain, victory is certain. You believe in God, and there's going to be times where it's going to be rough. There's going to be temporary losses in the battle, but we can win the war. And this is how it has to be done.
Absolutely. Monica, because we're telling the truth. Right before you went on that incredible layout there that you just did, that grand slam, I was about to say, the writings of George Washington, his hundreds of letters, they're in the Library of Congress. It's incredible. Talking about body and just read them, but there's been books published with them posted, and he literally gave the same speech you just said. War with the greatest empire the world's ever seen, beating them. They beat Napoleon, and George Washington said, "They're in the wrong. They're insulting us. I'm going to persevere. I'm not going to back down. Good is always outnumbered at first. I believe in God's famous paintings that have been done in the snow, because he would really sometimes pray for like hours. They'd come into his tent to be praying, and he went 5.5 years, total defeat, but persevered. And then all of a sudden, they won every battle after that. All of a sudden, they went in their cells. All of a sudden, they were cleared. And he was one of the richest men in America at that point, so despite the fact the Lords tried to block him and stuff. His whole fortune on the war, he paid the troops the first few years. They put him as a general because he'd bankroll it, and they literally, further the Declaration of Independence, got put in prison or killed. Their families put on prison ships. They went through hell, but man, it was that much sweeter. Exactly what you just said. Good is never the big, powerful thing in Satan's world. We're always the upstart. We're always the ragtag band. We're always the rebels, and that's what defines us. But for each one of our men is worth 100 of theirs.
Absolutely, because we have genuine conviction. And that's why it's interesting. We could go back to something we said earlier. This is why they're trying to control all the money. It's kind of funny. I got told by somebody, I won't say who, but they come to me and they said, Andrew, the reason that they are so threatened by you is because you are a genuine attack on the educational system of nations. The reason they talk about you in British schools to not listen to you is you're teaching young boys to learn things that actually matter, to actually change their lives, and how to make money online, how to become financially successful. I have 16, 17-year-old kids in my programs making more than their teachers, and they're threatened by that because when you have money, you can resist. This is another big thing we don't talk about. In fact, a lot of mainstream conservatives, which I don't even bother me saying I'm materialistic. I said, listen, if you want to fight a war, you need money. You need money to fight a war. I want all of my fans to be as rich and strong as possible because that makes them good soldiers. It's very hard to resist the vaccine if you need to go to work to pay the rent. That's another thing that's very important. I don't think it's mentioned often enough. That's why they're trying to control global finance and trying to restrict us so heavily, because they need all of us absolutely.
No, I totally agree. Just interject here. The Clinton Foundation, Global Foundation, but their National Library, WorldNet Daily sued them like 10 years ago. Took years to get it. They got millions of documents. The Carnegie Endowment and the Ford Foundation, the CIA, was we can't let conservatives, nationalists, or nuclear families have money because they are intrinsically common sense and conservative, and they'll form their own communities. And they listed a few little film producing companies and a few magazine companies that were conservative. Little companies, because they knew the acorn would grow into a mighty tree. And exactly right. one good thing the left is really powerful at is flooding money into their causes because they know. Then they guilt us for trying to build up capital to fight them. And exactly, if George Washington, as a teenager, hadn't gone out and risked his life being a surveyor into the western frontier and been in a bunch of battles before he was even commissioned in the militia and then later in the military for the British, he would not have been that rich man, literally self-made. And that's why he was so pissed at the British, because you had to go to a lord to sell a piece of property or to bring in a ship or to bring in products. And he got tired of literally inbred, retarded British lords getting a piece of his money. And so when he had that money, he then put it all on the craps table for America. And so he wasn't just the general, he was sincere. And that's what it's about. If he wouldn't have had that money that he literally made as a teenager and a young man, risking his life. Because, you know, the French, it's in a few books, he never bragged about it. George Washington was out there with a tomahawk and a gun, killing people every day trying to stop him surveying land. And you could say, oh, he's a conqueror, oh, he's a usurper. Well, he was out there fighting badass Native Americans. I mean, he wasn't playing games. Yep. So the point is that this guy was like Conan the Barbarian, but they didn't have movies, the internet back then. We don't know all the stuff he did. So he had to go out and literally make this treasure, do this, then lead our country to its birth and victory. That is a top gangster.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is another thing. And I say to people when they say, how do we win this war? I say it's a spiritual war. You need to believe in God. You need to be a good person. You need to be physically strong, mentally strong. And you need to work as hard as possible and become financially successful. The left have money because they print money. They print money. So, of course, they have money. And we talk about, I have to mention this here, some mainstream conservatives. I don't know who a lot of these people are because they're all clowns and they're all opposition anyway, but they were attacking me for being materialistic. You just talked about how George Washington needed money to save America. The reason young boys listen to me is because I have a private jet and a bunch of fancy cars and a big house. The reason I can inspire young men to be diligent and be hard and disciplined is because I have such a fantastic life. If I didn't have these things, they wouldn't be inspired by me. And money is what it takes to win wars. What are we sending to Ukraine? Money. We're sending money. So to sit there and say as conservatives, we shouldn't be materialistic, you're just buying into the garbage that the left want. They don't want any of us to have any kind of finance. Because when you have no finance, it's easy to bankrupt you. Listen, Alex, when I was the most Googled man in the world, do you think I weren't approached by a bunch of mainstream companies? I'm the most Googled man in the world amongst one of the most profitable demographics on the planet. Young men from 15 to 35. I was offered $30 million, $25 million, $45 million to sell my soul, to shut up about certain subjects and be sponsored by X company. I was offered unlimited money to be quiet, and I said no. Why? Because I already have money. You can't buy a man who already has money. And that's another thing they're very afraid of. They're afraid of people who are self-financed. That's one of the reasons they're afraid of Trump. He doesn't need your stupid donors. He doesn't need your garbage. He has his own money. And that's another thing you have to be very, very careful of and understand in this war. It's a spiritual war, but it's also a very financial war. They want the conservatives flat broke because then there's very little we can do.
What you said is so powerful, and we're totally simpatico because that's exactly what I was thinking of. 170 billion, at least to Ukraine. Money is fuel in your tank. Money is the symbol of energy that allows you to have mobility. If your dad was a world champion chess player, I know you're a great chess player. I'm a terrible game. If you couldn't move your pieces, you couldn't play the game.
Correct.
So imagine if the chess pieces didn't even have energy to move. That's where they want us isolated back to the pod.
Absolutely. Back to the pod. So this is what we have to do to truly win this war. I believe spiritually people's minds are awakening and they're starting to understand all the Then what we have to do is make sure that everybody who follows us genuinely feels an absolute increase in the living conditions, and they feel more positive, and they feel more disciplined and hardworking. Their real life outside of the internet actually improves. And the third thing is, I believe I have a responsibility to try and make every single person who believes in me and follows me, helping them in every way possible, as financial. That's the way we win. When all of the capital is owned by people who are sensible, then it's going to be a lot harder for them to enslave us. And unfortunately, right now, the capital is owned by people who are only interested in control. And when you want to control people, you have to remove their sensibilities. Because it's sensibilities have parameters. They have limits. If you don't want people with limits, if you're in charge of the world and you want to control everybody, you want to remove their sensibility so they have no limit, so you can tell them some absolute garbage. You can tell them to put a mask on and stay in their house and be afraid of the common cold. That's what you want. So we need to be sensibility as far as funded